Do the right thing. That's right, folks. We are entering into Spiketember. This is where, for all of September on Movie Tales, we're going to be looking at some of the films by Spike Lee, a director who I am both a massive fan of and somebody whose filmography I have a lot of blank spots in. So I was like, this is the perfect way to talk about some of my favorites of his, which is a lot of his later stuff, and then fill in some gaps here and there. And to kick us off into Spiketember, I figured we'd start with the film that kind of started it all, Do the Right Thing, which is a film I haven't seen in a very long time. I have seen the film. I definitely last saw this when I was younger, and I wasn't in the headspace I'm in now, where I look at film a different way, and I look at a filmmaker a different way, you know? I really like Spike Lee. I just think as like a talent and a guy, he is so fascinating and so interesting and is never boring. Regardless of what you like about his films or not, he's not a guy who ever feels like he's phoning it in or is bored, and he's always going to try something. He's currently working on a remake of an Akira Kurosawa film, which I find to be utterly fascinating. It's kind of a curious choice for him, but it's cool. And he always just has a very specific style in mind. And I really like that and appreciate that. And I'm so glad he's finally kind of getting his roses for being like one of this generation or one of these generational talents who is finally at that point where people are like, oh no, we should really appreciate what he's done. Not that he wasn't that guy before, but you know, you start off with a certain amount of budget behind you and you're making like a specific film, and then people just kind of put you in a specific category. But then he's just on a whole other level. Like the things he is doing visually are insane. And you watch a film like this from 1989, the things we are doing, both on camera and behind the camera, the way we move the camera, the way these places just look expensive, but everything is just close up or Dutch angles. It's great. We couldn't make a movie that looks like this today. I say that all the time on this channel, but I mean it here too. There is something so distinctively this era of movies and independent film and like taking these chances on these auteur directors who are going to build something in themselves that we just don't see anymore. I don't know a comparison of a director who could make something like this today. I don't know who it would be. And that's kind of interesting to think about in itself. This is a very politically minded filmmaker. This movie ends with like quotes from Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. And that is all stuff we're going to touch upon throughout Spiketember for sure. And issues of race and, you know, cultural appropriation and stuff like that. They're things we're going to talk about. And I guess I just want to say this before we kind of get into everything about this movie and Spike's career in general. I am coming into these films as a politically minded person who is open to being told everything that a filmmaker wants to tell them. More often than not, I am on the side of Spike Lee. Especially in this film, I agree with a lot of the things he is saying, the things he is doing. But this is also a filmmaker who makes films about the black experience growing up in a specific neighborhood, and that is not an experience I have with him. I am a white guy who lived in the suburbs of Canada. It is a different experience than growing up in Brooklyn like the protagonists of this film. So we're going to have some differences in opinion, or I'm going to view things in a different way than maybe what the target demographic or the characters in this movie are going to experience and feel. Saying that, this movie works for me on every conceivable level. I don't think there is a dull moment in this movie, and it is beautiful and perfect, and I had a great time coming back to rewatch this. Knowing what I know about Spike now, and how he thinks and how he operates, and you know the stuff he wants to do and the stuff he wants to say, this just worked for me on every conceivable level. There are things in it that are weird, and it hones in on the wrong things, and I especially think like in this Oscar season, it honed in on the wrong things because Danny Aiello is the only one who gets any awards recognition, and I'm like, really, Sal, really? Okay, it's very, you know, 90s Hollywood of like, we kind of want to like present this, but we're scared to present it. So yeah, we got a lot of growing up to do still, and we're going to get there. And a lot of that has to come from Spike. This is a movie set on a neighborhood in Brooklyn. It follows Sal's famous pizzeria, which is played by Danny Aiello. And he is, like an old Italian guy working in this neighborhood that's primarily non-Italian people. And a bunch of the visitors just come into his diner, and it is very episodic in what we're doing here. We're kind of just going through the day in the life of this neighborhood. We spend time with a bunch of different characters, learning their stories, learning their journey. We do have like a central figure played by Spike Lee himself and a character named Mookie, and he is the delivery boy for the pizzeria. So he'll interact with everyone in the pizzeria, on the streets. He'll go to people's neighborhoods and their houses and whatnot, and he kind of just goes about the day. And it's very interesting and very cool, and a lot of faces you are going to come to love and respect in different capacities. One of the key factors that maybe you're not aware of is this is a young Samuel Jackson, who is the radio DJ. He is Senior Mr. Big Daddy or something like that. What is the name? Yeah, Love Daddy. Mr. Senior Love Daddy. And he just kind of he's broadcasting from the neighborhood. It's almost like distinctively playing for this neighborhood because the people will come in and just listen to everything he's saying. We have one guy who's walking with his boombox doing everything in that capacity, playing the music. And he just talks about what's going on. Hottest day in Brooklyn by far. Everyone's hot and sweaty, and they'll tell you that. They'll all say that. Everyone's in their little skimpy outfits. We really open this movie up with a bunch of people dancing to fight the power. I shouldn't say some people. I should say women. And look, Spike, hey, they're attractive ladies, man. I get it. It's fun. It's a cool opening. And I guess we'll just go down kind of the stories that everyone kind of goes through until we get to, the end. There are separate stories that people are going on. Mookie is the main one. He is kind of just getting angry that he can't get paid early at Sal's. And he interacts with all the other characters coming in and out. The big conflict that kind of opens up everything is the character Bugging Out, played by a very young Giancarlo Esposito. He is kind of upset that Sal has no pictures of famous black people up on the wall. It's just Italians like Stallone and Sinatra. And he's like, your customers are all black. Maybe you should accommodate to them. And that's a very interesting feeling. And you're like, well, it's not your restaurant. You can't do that. And it plays both sides very well. So that becomes a thing now where you see Sal starting to worry, maybe I should either ban people from, my restaurant for doing that, or get Mookie to handle things in a different way. So that becomes a thing that Mookie's dealing with. He's also just interacting with all our other characters. And who do we got here? We got DeMayer, who is played by, I'm sorry, I don't have these names memorized, who is played by O.C. Davis, a fantastic older actor who's just the oldest generation we are seeing on these streets. We have the old men, the older men, and then the youth, the hip kids, the ones that Martin Lawrence is a part of, and his group of kids with their old school 80s headgear and their tie-dye and all their colors. Not tie-dye, they're wearing bright colors. You kind of see I think it's fantastic the way it separates what each generation is wearing, because DeMayer, who's of the older generation, and Mother Sister, who is of his generation too, they are wearing traditional clothes, even though he's a drunk and he's just kind of doing cheap work to get $1 so he can buy a beer or whatever. He is wearing a suit. He's dressed up. He's trying to present himself as something better. And you got someone like Mother Sister who's I'm going to have my hair perfectly done. I'm going to wear really nice clothing. Even though we aren't, actively doing stuff, we're the ones that are going to present better and well in that capacity. And I think it's amazing. His story is just everyone's kind of beating him down for a bit, Mother Sister for a bit. The young kids are picking on him. And he has a great moment where they're like, what'd you do for your life, old man? He's like, you don't get to tell me what my life is, okay? Until you've been in my position, watching your 5 kids starve because you can't save them and your wife screaming at you, you don't know. You don't know what I've been through, which I think is brilliant. What I also think is brilliant is how the young kid's yeah, well, in that situation, I would have got a job, fed my family, kept them safe, It is really good, and I think Spike is definitely aware you have to talk about both things. You cannot have this be a one-sided thing within the community, where everyone's aware that DeMayer is a guy who maybe messed up every now and then, but there's a story behind that you have to acknowledge, because he's not a sad sack. He's just someone who's been through a lot. and he's going to work out all that stuff. His story comes to kind of like two ultimate endings, one where he saves a kid and everyone starts to realize that maybe he's not as bad as the guy that you imagine, and then another one where he like protects or just like comforts mother sister in like some capacity. So that's kind of cool. You like to see that. Bugging Out's got a journey that he's going on trying to get people to sign his petition. Not an actual petition. It's just so weird to see Giancarlo Esposito look like this, like a young guy with this haircut and this style. It's crazy. For what his career is going to like blossom into, it's insane to think this is where he kind of got to start. And speaking of starts, we got to get it out of the way. This has the credits that says, and introducing Rosie Perez. She plays Tina. Now, Tina, the entire movie is like cooped up in her apartment because she has to stay home with her son. And as the story progresses, we realize that her son is the son of Mookie as well. So Mookie and Tina have a son. His name is Hector. Mookie wants to spend time with her, but he's always busy doing other stuff. I mean, it's incredible. It is truly incredible what she does here. Unbelievable. I am just blown away by finding this talent, like finding this woman and just having her probably give one of the strongest and most committed and intense performances of the entire film. She's in one location the whole time, and it is just this powerhouse of someone yelling at you, and it's fully formed. You're like, oh my God, that's Rosie Perez. I haven't seen her in anything, but this is her debut, and you're like, this is already like someone I feel like I should know in every conceivable level. She is that good. That good. I love Tina so much. It's a great, incredible performance, and my goodness, is Rosie Perez attractive. I have a huge crush on Rosie Perez. I always have, and this just like, solidifies that. It's like, yeah, this is a woman who is gorgeous and awesome and incredibly fun and so talented and amazing. There is the storyline of the kind of three older gentlemen, not as old as like DeMeo or like Mother Sister, but I think it's like Sweet Dick Willie, Coconut Sid, and some other guy. It's just them. It's hot out. They're all wearing different types of hats, and they're sitting, underneath an umbrella, just talking about how like shit things have gotten. Pissed off that the Koreans moved in and like got their shop up so quick. I love the Korean family, by the way. I think they're incredible because they're like, we are aware of where we are. And we are trying to be okay with everything. And they stand out for themselves in some certain situations, which is incredible to see. And I like that a lot. Very fun stuff. But those guys, they're always fun to cut back to. You have Smiley walking around. He's a man with a stutter. And he's trying to sell pictures of MLK Jr. and Malcolm X. And everyone's just kind of like, well, he's here. He's not really going to help us with everything. And then you got, I think, my favorite like side story or like just character presence, because you can really see what Spike Lee wants to do with the camera when that shows up, is the stuff with Radio Raheem. And Radio Raheem is played by Bill Nunn, and it is just a big, towering guy showing up, and every time we do a close-up on him, the camera's just tilted a little bit upwards to make him look even more imposing. He's just a guy that walks around with a big boombox, and he's just like a cool motherfucker, just like a really chill, awesome guy. He's got big knuckles that say love and hate on them. He puts them in front of the camera like, yeah, man, I love you, but I could hate you just as well. I don't hate you, man. I love you. And like shakes his hand with the love. It's amazing. And he is just kind of just like this intense guy who's just showing up, playing his music. The Puerto Ricans are trying to play their music louder than him, but he plays it louder. And they're like, all right, man, cool, you win. Rock on. It's sick. He kind of has an altercation with Sal as well. He won't shut off his boombox when he goes into the restaurant. And he kind of teams up with Bugging Out, and we'll get back to that in a minute here. But there is some other people in their restaurant that work with Sal. He's got two sons, Vito and Pino. One of them played by John Turturro. And you're just like, this is another guy that feels like he's fully formed from the get-go. This is an intense performance. He is the most racist character in the movie. There's a couple of people that are racist. There's some cops that are assholes. There's like a rich guy driving a car that they spray water all over. But he's kind of like the most racist. And then you have Vito, played by Richard Edson, and he's kind of like the slower, not like slow brother, but he's just like, he's the younger brother. They treat him with respect. He's more open to the community. He likes the people in the neighborhood. He's friends with Mookie. He enjoys spending time with these people. Whereas I was like, you got to get away from these people, man. They're all apes and shit. And it's handling the situation as best you would. And when you have the filmmaker completely aware of how to handle the situation, it handles it better. There's a really interesting scene where Pino and Sal are having a conversation about, like, should we just stop doing this? Like, why should we spend more time here? Like, my friends make fun of me for coming here and spending time with these black people. And his dad is just like, they're not your friends if they're making fun of you. I've been a part of this community for a long time. Like, Mookie has a sister who I'm kind of hitting on, kind of. It's very weird. Played by Spike Lee's own sister, Joey Lee. Her character is Jade. She gets a couple of scenes, not too many. And she shows up to Sal's one time, and, you know, Aiello is just like, oh, this is like a young, attractive woman. I'm turning on everything. Everything's going to be better for her. I ain't going to talk shit about her brother. I've been talking shit about him the entire time. I'm not going to do that now. And just completely switches the vibe. And it's very interesting. And maybe you get a sense that Sal's here because he likes this girl, or maybe there's more going on there. But it just, man, it handles it so well. It is just so good at just controlling every narrative that's going on here. And the other thing, too, this movie is just having so much fun. It is so deathly aware of what it's doing, so painstakingly aware of just like, we're going to have fun here. It's going to make you feel comforted and just enjoy it. You're going to be like, yeah, we're blasting Fight the Power, man. Like, fuck all these people. This is all bullshit. Don't get a job. Just have fun with your friends. Fuck all this noise, man. These Italians don't know shit. All this great stuff going on. Fuck the police. It's all incredible. And it just paces itself so well. So when it gets to the turn, you're like, oh, this is so earned. I haven't seen this movie in a while. I know what's coming up. I have like the vaguest recollection. I'm like, I know something is about to happen. I forgot just exactly what happened. And I think this movie is more timely now than it ever has been. Now, I am not fully aware of every single event that was happening both in New York or around America during the late 80s. I did a little bit of research. There was like a protest in Manhattan somewhere where police did brutalize like a bunch of people. I saw that was happening in like 88. I don't know if that influenced everything going on here in the movie, but we're a couple years away from Rodney King and the LA riots. We're still a little bit away from OJ, but these things we're talking about, they are still happening. Like, this fucking ending is the ending of fucking Da 5 Bloods, man. Like, we're still doing this thing. Lee is still talking about this stuff. It's kind of insane. It's really interesting. Really powerful stuff. We're closing up Sal's for the night, and a couple of kids show up because they want like a slice at the end of the day. Mookie just wants to get home to his girlfriend and his son. And then Buggin' Out shows up with Radio, Raheem, and Smiley, and they come in blasting the music, and Sal kind of freaks out, and he breaks the boombox, which causes Raheem to get into an altercation with him, and the fight ends up outside, and it turns into a big fight, you know. Pino and Vito are trying to drag people off, the other kids get involved, they're trying to drag everybody off. It is just a big altercation, right? And quickly it escalates to the point of police showing up. Now, we have teased police a couple of times throughout the movie, and this is the other brilliant thing about this movie, right? We see two distinctive officers. One of them's like, there's nothing I could do in this neighborhood. These people are going to do what they can. And then there's another time where an officer is driving through and he's just staring at the older men like, look at this waste. Look at these losers not doing anything with themselves. And when the time comes where Raheem and Sal are fighting and the cops show up, they are helping Sal and letting him kind of get away, and they are dragging Buggin' Out and they are dragging Raheem away. And the one that we saw earlier who was watching these guys has his baton around Raheem and his feet are off the ground, and the cop we saw was like, stop, put him down. Like, we got him. And it goes to an extreme that we see a cop kill a black man. And it's straight up murder. It is straight up murder. He is not fighting the police. He is not doing anything in an altercation with them. He's off the guy he was assaulting, literally kind of begging for his life. But this guy kills him. And that turns into an even bigger altercation. And we're having fun for the first hour and 40 minutes of this movie. We are having so much fun. Like, this neighborhood is cool. Everyone likes each other. We're putting up with stuff. And there's like subtle hints of racism, but it's mainly through Totoro. And then suddenly this happens and everything changes. The entire nature of this shifts and we're trapped in something new. And then we burn down Sal's. And it is crazy. It's crazy how fast it escalates. And the police leave, the firefighters show up, and they have to restrain the protesters by spraying them with water. It goes crazy because suddenly it is just this activist thing where we watched an innocent black man get killed. Now we are retaliating. And that is just so much of Spike Lee as a filmmaker. Now, I don't think he is advocating for violence in this movie. I think he is saying, because there are the quotes at the end of the film from Malcolm X in particular, violence is going to be something that is natural in self-defense. You cannot shy away from that. When something happens to you, you're going to have that happen. And we burn down Sal's, and it's just very, very painful to watch. And then the next day, we just kind of see how it all ends, which is just Mookie is he wants his money. He wants the money he is owed. And Sal's like, you fucking asshole. Like, you can't come here and demand money. I lost everything. He's like, you didn't lose anything. You're going to be fine. This neighborhood's broken, you know? It's not going to get better. It is crazy and intense and intimate and sweet all at the same time. And it's brilliant. It's a brilliant movie that knew exactly what it wanted to do and what he wanted to accomplish. And it is just all about, like, what's the right thing to do? What is anything to do here? There's no winner when stuff like this happens. There's only victims and perpetrators. And that is just a really fascinating bow to wrap this movie up with. I find it to be utterly fascinating and truly magnificent. This is an incredible film with a lot of names doing something as younger actors, and the older generation is being like, the times have changed, everything's kind of bad still. It's brilliant and cool. I do appreciate it. And it's holding on that shot where it's Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. That's how it ends. And I'm like, yeah, that is everything Spike Lee's doing. He has seen the ramifications of that probably throughout his whole life. I find that to be utterly fascinating and beautiful. This is a great movie. A fantastic movie. That is just a filmmaker announcing himself on the scene, just showing you what he can do. And what he can do is something incredible. Balance so many narratives. When they all come together or separate at different moments, it is truly fantastic. And it's just handling itself so beautifully with some great music, some great visual cues. This feels like a real movie that we just don't see a lot of anymore. And a lot of that has to do with like a young man who's putting it all on the line. This is a movie you make when you are announcing yourself, when you are saying something. You're like, fuck everyone. This is what it's like to be me, to be in my area, to be in my neck of the woods. This is it. And it's terrifying, it's scary, and it's not getting better. And then later, this movie's from 1989. We are coming on to 35 years. It hasn't changed. This stuff is still happening, and he's still making movies about this, and that is utterly fascinating and awesome to see. Great movie. Great fucking movie. I love it. That's Do the Right Thing. We'll be back next week with more movies in Spiketember, but until then, thank you all for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck. Fight the power.